Towards the end of time, all the progress began to be faked, and the fake people in an important position began to have a terrible fate. Gods watched the chaos, gods needed a plan. All the kids in the land were being born with fangs. Men took traits of dogs, and gods arranged a convention of the global gods and headed to the lotus lake of pods. The lotus flowers watched. The Hindus came to devise a theory on men and animals. We can't make war on all beasts. Others thought they were in denial. They explained that life is life, so we must send in the centennials. They can explain enlightenment in a piece to all of these millennials. Once we have thought of self-love, and then we will introduce balance and start it from above. If we attack the system from the top, people hear the pennies drop. Change will trickle down and all this unconscious sleeping will stop. Jesus said, "You say that an animal can reach enlightenment? If an animal can look at man in the form of God and still salivate, it's corrupted and we must eliminate. If the animal poses no threat and understands the order God did create, we can send it to heaven, and as you wish, Buddha can make it reincarnate. However, what's happening is something more serious. The rate at which men are changing, the Cains controlling their fate. How? Now, hell is overpopulated. We can break his control on the state. We need someone to investigate. Allah felt his people were taking the brunt of it. Our blood is spilt the most, and if the Cain's in power, who are his hosts? Because your people are lost, but mine are toast." Buddha said, "The disease is deeper than what meets the eye. If you take a virus affecting the kidney, the symptom can show on the face. The Middle East is just a place. We must find the source of the hate outbreak before it's too late and love is at stake." The Baha'i saint said, "Yeah, Buddha is right. This is a systematic war on gods and light. Human belief is dying in plain sight, and whatever's changing their minds, we have to unite and go fight. See, the problem with all of you is that your ideas are out of date. Every prophet you've sent down is old and the kids can't relate. They look for love on Tinder and self-love they think is getting paid. They love everything fake and praise money they make. The beast is on a computer and he hits activate. And all these kids, they jump like herds and fall for the same bait. In order for the gods to win, let us set up a hub for research," Jesus said. "You can use my abandoned church. Let's get us some computers and study him. Meanwhile, put out a search. There has to be a new take on love, and we will find it first. If we lose this fight, hell will overcrowd and burst." So, the gods gathered 100,000 of their best believers, locked them in a church, sent angels to the temples, they sent sentients to the mosques and synagogues. They set up observatories and hacking teams and activated insects and trees. They sent out a notice to all the beings explaining what's happened to human beings. "Please report what you're seeing on everything breathing. I want reports from mountaintops, even where they're skiing." The monastery. The women of Malang. I reside in nada, sound frequencies. I spend most of my time alone. I'm a woman of humble beginnings, a peasant, with a bloodline no one cared to trace. Tumbling from land to land, water, sea and air, I had become somewhat of a traveller. Travelling with a group of musicians, telling the fabled truth of a peasant life. One day, I received an invitation to sing inside the gates of the empire. So, as any curious mind would, I accepted and went with my troupe. A year later, I was married to the prince, but my land and my people I left behind fell into the hands of the enemies. The enemies were faceless. The bloodbath that left my people massacred back home bore no effect within the walls of the empire. Their screams were never heard, the sound never travelled. Somehow, the sound of the weapons were eerily quiet. The world leaders who addressed it, the reporting that suppressed it, there were no reactions. This chaos was not mine to own. In this period I felt torn. Something bigger was going on. I stopped believing in the stories I told through my songs. I began to see the web deceiving the people from the truth, and the lies were spun. I needed to be strong. To be strong meant to lose, and lose everything, then come to a stillness. The world spun around me. People who worked within the empire went from rich to riches. People didn't make it from rags anymore. I stayed in the middle, watching the world spinning on the axis of my hips like a hula. What was my strength had now become my weakness, and what was my weakness was beginning to be my strength. But somehow my realization of this was too slow. My values had begun to bend. Mind began to travel. My mind and words had the ability to manifest events. This pattern began to speed up faster and faster, a boomerang that would sometimes hit me in the face like karma. The more aware I became of my power, the more crippled I became in my circumstances. Akash. The space without atoms or body carried sound. It is said to be the purest of them all. It is the ether that communicates with gods. It is vibration. My voice can speak to gods. Yet, I was a flippant being in this flippant society. I was contributing to unnecessary existence with unnecessary actions, wants, needs, products, pumping my ego, showing status through wealth or sexuality as the only apparatus on this planet or my being. I was at the top of society, at the top of the tree. The meek shall inherit the earth, they said, so I felt it was me. I had a seat at the table of the 100 best people in this privileged society, future queen of 1/4 population that sucked out and used 3/4 of this world's energy resource. The power source of the universe given to earth was not equally shared. We had it all. The life was great inside these walls. The more I ignored my power, the more my world turned upside down. I was in this transition from warrior to woman because I've ignored my duty. My presence in this empire and my feelings of helplessness and despair and darkness and depression was traveling through the sound waves and influencing the people throughout the land. I was unaware to what extent. The clouds set in and it rained when I cried. Somehow, I exiled myself as well as being exiled by the empire. I had fled to a monastery in the Eastern Front in Akash, past the woods to rid myself of the despair and confusion, simply to stop myself transmitting despair and confusion. I wanted to devote my time to purifying myself, manifesting creativity in the purest state, sound in its purest state, reset taste, reset hearing, and make the right sounds touch to connect and fight this sleeping society. But I lost my voice. I was the goddess of spoken word in Akash. I had no voice for the second time in 24 moons. Words barely came out. There was no communication, not only mouth to mouth, by any technology I had. I removed the GPS and World Wide Web on all my devices. They had no use except being a handy photo album to the past I had. Now and again, I sometimes still receive messages from the dark side on them, the demon emails carrying words of curses, the threats and the blackmails and the hate, and the general toxic trolling, letting me know never to speak. Out there in the real world, I was cancelled.